I had always known that I wasn't welcome in this house, but no matter how much I had prepared myself, nothing could lessen the pain of hearing my own mother discuss ways to get rid of me. Her words were sharp, cold, and cutting. I crouched on the staircase, pressing myself against the worn-out wall, trying not to let my shaky breaths make a sound. Down in the kitchen, my mother's voice mingled with that of the man she called her husband. Carl. My stepfather. Their conversation blended with the clinking of silverware against plates, as if they were merely discussing their weekly shopping list. Natalie can't stay here forever, Sheila. Carl's voice was heavy, as if each word was a burden he was forced to speak. I'm not her real father. I have no obligation to support her. I know. My mother's response was so quiet I had to strain to hear it. Then do something about it, Carl snapped, slamming his knife onto the plate. You're pregnant, we're having a baby. I don't want to waste another dime on that girl. Everything I have will go to my child. She's not my responsibility. My chest tightened. I bit down on my lip, forcing back the sob that threatened to escape. I had always known I didn't matter, but hearing my mother being pressured to abandon me was a pain too unbearable to face. But she's my daughter, my mother protested weakly. Carl scoffed, a sound filled with disdain. Your daughter, but my financial burden. You think raising a child costs nothing? You think she can just stay here forever, leeching off us? We can't afford to feed a useless mouth when we have a real baby on the way. Silence stretched, broken only by the ticking of the clock on the wall. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing this to be just a nightmare, hoping that when I opened them, my mother would still be there, smiling at me like she used to when I was little. But no. That dream had ended long ago. Why don't you send her away? Carl continued, his voice dripping with sickly sweetness laced with venom. Your sister, Linda, she's single, no kids. Send the girl to her. That way she'll have a place to stay, and we can cut down on expenses. Wouldn't that be too cruel? My mother hesitated, but I knew she had never stood up to Carl before. She would listen to him. She always did. This isn't cruelty, Sheila, this is necessity. If you won't call, I will. A long pause, then, the sound of buttons being pressed. My mother was making the call. I held my breath. Linda, my mother's voice trembled. It's Sheila, I need to ask you for a favor. A voice responded on the other end, cold and indifferent. I couldn't hear the words clearly, but I could sense the irritation in her tone. You want to send the girl here? Linda said bluntly. Fine. But I'm not doing this for free. If you send her over, you'll have to send money every month. My stomach twisted. They didn't just want to get rid of me. They were bargaining over me. Like I was an unwanted item. You'll get the money, my mother assured her quickly. I promise. Then it's settled, Linda cut in. The call ended, and I knew, in that moment, that my life had changed forever. Not long after, my mother took me to my aunt's house. The car door slammed shut behind me, leaving a thick silence between me and the woman standing on the porch. Aunt Linda crossed her arms, eyeing me like a discounted item she wasn't sure was worth buying. You're here, huh? She said, devoid of warmth. I tightened my grip on the strap of my duffel bag, struggling to balance the anxiety and exhaustion weighing me down. I hadn't cried when my mother left me, because she hadn't even said goodbye. She had simply dropped me off at the door and driven away, taking my old life with her. Hello? Aunt Linda, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Aunt Linda? She smirked coldly. How polite. But listen, I didn't take you in because I wanted to. I'm only doing this because your mother is paying me, so don't think for a second that you're welcome here. I swallowed the lump in my throat and nodded. She turned and walked inside without a backward glance. I understood, and followed her in. Aunt Linda's house was just like her, cold and meticulously orderly. There were no signs of life, no family photos on the walls, no decorations to add warmth, Everything was arranged as if the slightest disturbance would shatter the perfect order she had created. "I have a few rules," she said as soon as I stepped inside. "No noise, no touching anything that isn't yours, and most importantly, no complaints. If you don't like it, leave. I won't stop you." I just nodded. She pointed toward the staircase. "Your room is upstairs. Don't expect me to care about you. Just stay out of my way." I climbed the stairs with heavy steps, feeling like I was walking into a prison rather than a place to call home. The room was tiny and barren, containing only an old bed and a scratched-up wardrobe. No windows. No space to breathe. I set my bag down and collapsed onto the bed. I didn't know how long I sat there, but when Aunt Linda finally called me for dinner, I forced myself to move, dragging my body out of the suffocating room. Dinner was a plate of cold food, and the atmosphere was even colder. Aunt Linda didn't say a word, only watching me with scrutiny every time I lifted my fork. I chewed carefully, afraid that even the smallest sound might set her off. Day after day, I learned to be silent. I moved like a shadow in her house, doing everything quickly and neatly, as if I had never been there at all. I didn't want to hear her constant disdain. But no matter how careful I was, mistakes were inevitable. One morning, as I was pouring milk into my cereal bowl, my hand trembled for just a second, but it was enough for a few drops to spill onto the table. Before I could wipe it up, a sharp voice cut through the air behind me. "What do you think you're doing?" I flinched and turned to see Aunt Linda standing there, hands on her hips, eyes like daggers. I was just about to clean it up," I stammered, reaching for a napkin. But she stepped closer, staring at the tiny spill as if I had committed a crime. "Clean it up?" She let out a cold laugh. "You think the money your mother sends me gives you the right to ruin my things? You think a napkin can fix your clumsiness?" "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "Didn't mean to?" She cut me off, her voice sharp and filled with contempt. "Even your own mother doesn't want you. Do you know how much trouble I go through just to keep you here?" I froze. Even after doing everything I could to avoid being a burden, to make myself invisible, I was still nothing but an inconvenience to her. "I'm sorry," I whispered, knowing my apology meant nothing. "That's right, you should be sorry. And remember, this isn't your home. You're here because I allow it. If you cause any more trouble, don't expect to stay much longer." I clenched my fists. I wanted to cry, but I wouldn't let myself. I just nodded. "Yes, Aunt Linda." She shot me one last glare before walking away, leaving me standing there, staring at my now cold cereal, and the spilled milk I no longer had the heart to clean up. I knew I had to learn how to endure, but I also knew something else. One day, I would leave this place. I had lived in Aunt Linda's house long enough to understand that nothing truly belonged to me. No solid footing, no real home, no one waiting for me. But even though I had braced myself for it, I still didn't expect to be thrown out again. That afternoon, I decided to do something I had hesitated to do for months. Call my mother. I didn't know what made me think she would change, but somehow I still wanted to try. I just wanted to hear her voice, just once. I picked up the landline, my fingers trembling as I dialed the numbers I had memorized for years. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. "Hello." My heart jumped. It was her. I took a deep breath. "Mom, it's me, Natalie." Silence stretched. No surprise, no joy in her voice, just heavy silence. Then, after a few seconds, my mother sighed. "Why are you calling?" Her words made me freeze. I had thought she would ask how I was, even if just out of politeness. But no. "Nothing. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I miss you." She let out a short laugh, a laugh with no warmth, no love. "Don't call again." Then, the click of the call ending. I stood there, the phone still pressed to my ear, even as the only sound left was the hollow beeping of a disconnected line. I didn't know how long I stood there. A minute? 10? All I knew was that when I finally lowered the phone, I felt empty. I placed the receiver back, but as I turned around, I met Aunt Linda's cold, piercing stare. "What do you think you're doing?" she asked, stepping closer. "Did you really think your mother wanted you?" I didn't answer. She crossed her arms, her expression filled with disdain. "Even your own mother doesn't want you. You know that, don't you?" This time, I didn't lower my head. This time, I met her gaze. Maybe I had grown too used to this truth for it to break me anymore. Aunt Linda sneered, as if my lack of reaction annoyed her. "Well, you don't have to worry about it anymore," she said, walking to the table and picking up the phone. "I don't want you here either. I'm sending you away." My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" She ignored me, dialing a number. A moment later, someone answered. "Betty, it's me, Linda." A brief pause, then she continued. "Yes, it's about Natalie. I don't want to keep her anymore, she'll be staying with you." I held my breath. "Yes, she's coming to you. Good, I'll drop her off at the bus station this afternoon." She hung up and turned to face me. "Pack your things, you're leaving tonight." I clenched my fists. I didn't ask why. I didn't beg her to reconsider. I just nodded and walked upstairs. It didn't matter where I was being sent, as long as I could leave this prison of a house. 3 hours later, I stood at the bus station, once again with my duffel bag slung over my shoulder, once again feeling abandoned. Aunt Linda didn't wait for the bus to arrive. She simply tossed me a ticket and headed back to her car. Her only parting words were, "Get on the bus. Get off at the last stop. Someone will pick you up." No goodbye, not even a final glance. The car door slammed shut. The tires rolled away, leaving me standing there, alone. I knew nothing about Betty. Aunt Linda had only told me she was my mother's mother, someone I had never met, someone I had never even heard about. But I had no other choice. Once again I was starting over in a new place, not knowing if it would be just like my mother's house or Aunt Linda's. The bus jolted to a stop, snapping me out of my tangled thoughts. I tightened my grip on the duffel bag and took a deep breath before stepping off. The early winter air bit through my thin jacket, but I barely noticed. In front of me stood a woman, waiting. She was small in stature, her silver-white hair neatly pinned back. Wrinkles lined her face, but her gray-moo eyes were sharp, as if they could see right through me. "Betty?" I asked, my voice dry, uncertain. She nodded, then opened her arms. I froze, unsure of what to do. "Come here, Natalie," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "You've had a long journey." I stiffened as she wrapped her arms around me. How long had it been since someone had hugged me? The sensation was so foreign that at first I stood there like a block of wood. But slowly, my body eased. "Just a little." "Are you okay?" she asked, pulling back, taking my hand in hers. I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell her that my family had tossed me aside like an unwanted package. But instead, I just nodded. "Then let's go home." She picked up my bag and led the way to an old four-door car parked by the curb. I hesitated for a moment, then followed her. Betty's house was small but warm, not the cold, meticulous kind of tidy like Aunt Linda's, but the kind that felt lived in. Family photos hung on the walls, a folded knit blanket rested on the couch. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and apples, as if there was always a freshly baked pie waiting. "Are you hungry?" she asked, as I set my bag down. I shook my head. "Well, sit down anyway." She poured a cup of hot tea and placed it in front of me. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to. But I want you to know that no one is going to throw you away here." I looked up at her. I had heard too many empty promises to believe in them. But Betty wasn't like my mother. She wasn't like Aunt Linda. Her words carried a weight that made me want to believe. Maybe, just maybe, I had finally found a place I wanted to stay. That night, I lay on my new bed, staring at the ceiling, speckled with patches of peeling paint. It wasn't luxurious, it wasn't special. But it was mine. For the first time in years, I had a place where someone had held me. I had never been held in someone's arms since I grew up. Somehow, that thought made me weak, and I cried. Hugging my pillow, I let the tears flow for all the years my life had been disregarded by others. But I hoped, this time, would be different. In the weeks that followed, I adjusted to my new life. Grandma never raised her voice, never made me feel like a burden. She had a few simple rules for me while living with her: wake up early, help around the house, and most importantly, treat myself well. One afternoon, as I was helping her pull weeds in the garden, she suddenly spoke. "I'm going to file for guardianship of you. I'll be your legal guardian." I almost dropped the small shovel in my hand. "What? I'll be your guardian. You won't have to worry about being thrown out again," she said, squinting at me. "Do you mind?" I didn't know how to respond. No one had ever wanted to keep me before. Yet she was willing to do this? "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice so small it was barely audible. She placed a hand on my shoulder, a light but firm touch. "More sure than anything in the world." I turned away, biting my lip to hold back the tears. As time passed, I learned many things from Grandma, about resilience, about kindness. She taught me that people could be hurt, but that didn't mean they had to be victims forever. She taught me that no matter how much life tried to knock me down, I had the right to stand up and choose my own path. And above all, she taught me that I deserved to be loved. For the first time in years, she made me believe that was true. Life with Grandma Betty wasn't easy. She was an elderly woman after all, but for the first time, I truly felt safe. She didn't spoil me, nor did she shower me with flowery words. Instead, she taught me that if I wanted a better life, I had to fight for it myself. "When life doesn't give you a clear path, you carve one out yourself," she once told me on an autumn afternoon as we harvested apples in the backyard. Those words stayed with me. I knew I didn't want to end up like my mother. A weak woman, easily manipulated, willing to abandon her own daughter for a worthless man. I didn't want to become like Aunt Linda, bitter, blaming everyone else for her miserable life. I wanted to do something meaningful, to prove that I was not the worthless burden they thought I was. So I threw myself into my studies. I stayed up late to study, woke up early to do homework, and joined every activity that could bring me closer to my goal. Whenever exhaustion hit me, I remembered all the cruel words my mother and Aunt Linda had once said to me. I would prove them wrong. I would never let myself become a victim of fate. Grandma Betty always supported me, but she never let me get too full of myself. "Come talk to me when you've got a stethoscope around your neck and a job at a big hospital," she said, when I excitedly showed her my high biology test score. And finally, with relentless effort, I made it. I defied my fate. 10 years later, I stood in the locker room of St. Luke's Hospital, carefully tying the knot on my white coat. On my pocket was the name I once thought I would never have: Dr. Natalie Carter. I lightly touched my name badge, feeling my heartbeat quicken. This wasn't just a title. This was proof of everything I had overcome. All the dreams I once thought were out of reach. My first morning as a doctor was anything but easy. The hospital was busy, patients came and went, and I barely had time to breathe. But no matter how exhausted I was, I still remembered Grandma Betty's words. "You'll do great," she had told me the day I received my acceptance letter to medical school. "Just remember, not everyone is lucky enough to be in a position to help others. Never forget why you chose this path." She was right. I hadn't chosen medicine for money or prestige. I chose it because I knew what it felt like to be abandoned, to have no one there when you needed them most. I wanted to be the person that kids like me could trust. By the time my first shift ended, the sky had already darkened. I stepped outside the hospital, taking a deep breath of the cool night air. I reached for my phone, almost instinctively wanting to call Grandma Betty. Then I remembered. She wasn't here anymore. She had passed away a year ago after a long illness. I had been by her side until the very end, holding her hand, the way she had once held mine in my earliest days with her. Before she closed her eyes for the last time, she had whispered to me, her voice weak but steady. "I'm proud of you, Natalie." Just 4 words. But they meant more to me than anything else I had ever heard. I looked up at the starry sky, whispering a promise. Grandma, I'll keep going. I'll do well. I'll help even more people. You won't be disappointed in me. Then I smiled, stepping forward on the path I had chosen. A path with no room for weakness or regret. Only strength and unwavering determination. It was a peaceful Sunday afternoon. I was sitting on the wooden bench on my porch, sipping a cup of hot tea and going through some medical reports I had brought home from the hospital. Everything was so quiet that I nearly forgot the world outside still existed. The world full of people I once thought I would never have to see again. Then the doorbell rang. I frowned. I wasn't expecting anyone. Setting my cup down, I stood up, adjusted my coat and walked to the door. When I opened it, my heart nearly stopped. My mother. And Carl. It took me a second to make sure I wasn't imagining things. Even after all these years, I recognized them instantly. My mother looked older, her hair now streaked with gray, but she still carried that same worn, calculating look. And Carl? He hadn't changed at all, except for his hair. The same cold expression, the same eyes filled with arrogance and greed. Natalie, my mother spoke first, attempting to smile. You've grown so much. I stayed calm, not letting my emotions betray me. Leaning against the doorframe, I kept my distance. What do you want? Her smile faltered for a moment but quickly returned, forced and sickly sweet. It's been so long since we last saw each other. How have you been? Her voice wavered. We're still family, right? She added, and family helps each other, don't they? I let out a short, humorless laugh. Family? Since when? Was it when you dumped me on Aunt Linda's doorstep? When you told me never to call again? Or was it all the years you never once tried to find me? And now you call us family? Carl spoke up, his voice still as gruff and unpleasant as I remembered. Well, look at you! Dr. Carter, huh? Must be making good money now, right? I didn't answer. My mother cleared her throat, brushing her bangs aside, feigning nervousness. Natalie, the past. You know, times were tough back then. But I'm still your mother. I raised you all those years, and you owe me for that, don't you? I stared at her, suppressing the disgust rising in my chest. I owe you? I took care of you for 11 years, she pressed on quickly, desperate to hold on to any leverage she could. Food, clothes, shelter, all of it was money your father and I provided. And now, Carl and I are struggling. I know you can help us. You're my daughter, aren't you? You have to help me. I stayed silent for a few moments before shaking my head. No. Carl's tone turned sharp. Listen here, brat. That damn old woman left you everything. We deserve a share too. I clenched my fists. The way he spoke about Grandma Betty, the only person who had ever truly loved me, made my blood boil. But I wouldn't lose control. Not for them. I stood tall, stepping out of the doorway, locking eyes with them. Listen carefully. Grandma Betty didn't leave anything to you. And even if she had, you have no right to come here and demand it like thugs. My mother frowned. Natalie, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, I cut her off. She legally adopted me and became my guardian. That means by law, I have no ties to either of you anymore. And I am the sole beneficiary. No one has the right to take a single cent from me. My mother's mouth fell open, her eyes wide with shock. Carl clenched his teeth, stepping forward, trying to use his size to intimidate me. You think you can just do that? You think you can cut off your family that easily? I didn't step back. Family? I scoffed. Family is made of people who love you, not those who discard you, despise you, and only show up when they want money. My mother opened her mouth as if to argue, but then she realized I was no longer the weak little girl she had abandoned. I saw it in her eyes, the disappointment, the helplessness, and the fear that she no longer had control over me. Carl's jaw tightened, His voice dropped to a low threat as he pointed a finger at me. "You'll regret this, Natalie. We'll let this go, for now." I smirked, raising an eyebrow. "Go ahead and try." I took a step back and shut the door. Click. The door closed, sealing them out of my life for good. I stood still for a few seconds, listening as their footsteps faded away, then let out a long breath. They could come for my money, they could threaten me, but they couldn't take what I had built, what Grandma Betty had left for me. I was no longer the 11-year-old girl thrown out onto the streets. I was Natalie Carter, and I would never let anyone hurt me again. 3 days after the tense encounter with my mother and Carl, I received a phone call from Grandma Betty's old neighbor Martha, a kind woman who had lived on the same street for over 30 years. "Natalie, you need to get over here now," her voice was urgent. I frowned, immediately putting down the medical files I had been reviewing. "What's wrong, Martha?" "It's them. They broke in and moved into Betty's house." I shot to my feet, my heart pounding. "What did you just say?" "They came yesterday, broke the lock and just walked in like they owned the place." Martha sounded furious. "And they've been telling everyone that you agreed to let them stay." But I knew that didn't sound right, so I called you. A wave of rage surged through me. Did they really think they could take Grandma Betty's house? The place I cherished most? As if it were theirs? "I'll handle it," I said through gritted teeth. Less than an hour later, I pulled up in front of my grandmother's house. And just as Martha had said, the lights were on, the curtains had been replaced, and a moving truck was parked in the driveway. I marched straight to the front door and shoved it open. Before I could even knock, the door swung open, and I was face to face with my mother. She looked momentarily surprised to see me but quickly regained her smug composure. "Natalie, dear, what a nice surprise. Come in." I crossed my arms, not moving. "Do you think I'm stupid?" My voice was icy, sharp enough to make even my mother falter. Carl appeared in the kitchen, a beer can in his hand, his expression lazy and dismissive. Well, look who's here, the doctor's gracing us with her presence." He smirked. "What's the fuss all about?" I pulled out a stack of legal documents from my bag and held them up. "This house belongs to me. Grandma Betty made it clear in her will, you have no right to be here." My mother crossed her arms, trying to maintain her calm. "Natalie, don't be selfish. We're family. I know you wouldn't throw your own mother out onto the streets, would you?" I stared at her, feeling nothing but contempt. "You threw me onto the streets when I was 11, why should I be generous to you now?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. She had no response to that. Carl slammed his beer can onto the table and took a step forward. "You really think you can kick us out? What are you gonna do, call the cops? Go ahead," he sneered. "See, if they even care." I pulled out my phone and dialed. I didn't blink. "Okay, let's find out." 20 minutes later, 2 police cars pulled up in front of the house. Curious neighbors gathered outside, whispering among themselves. 2 officers approached, their expressions professional but firm. "Miss Carter?" one of them asked. I nodded. "Yes. This is my house, but these 2 broke in and are illegally occupying it." My mother's face went pale. "No! I'm her mother, this is our home!" Carl crossed his arms, still trying to play it cool. "Come on, officers, families suing each other? Isn't that a bit much?" The second officer glanced through my documents, flipping through them quickly before reading aloud. "This is a legally certified will, and the property deed is under Ms. Carter's name. There are no co-owners listed." The officer turned to them. "Legally, you have no right to be here. This house belongs to Ms. Carter. You have 5 minutes to pack your things and leave," the first officer added firmly. "If you refuse, we will remove you by force and take you both into custody." My mother's eyes darted around in panic. "Natalie, you can't do this to me. I gave birth to you. Enough," I cut her off, my voice firm. "You stopped being my mother the moment you abandoned me. I owe you nothing." Her face turned ghostly white, and for the first time I saw true despair in her eyes. Carl was different. He glared at me, his jaw clenched in anger. You'll regret this. I stepped forward, meeting his eyes without a hint of fear. No, I won't. I stood there, watching them pack their belongings, throwing bags haphazardly into their car. There was no arrogance left in them, no smirks, no laughter. When the car doors slammed shut and they drove away, I remained standing on the porch, soaking in the absolute silence around me. They were gone. They couldn't come back. I took a deep breath and stepped inside, closing the door behind me. The house was mine again, as it was always meant to be. I stood in the living room, where the golden hues of the setting sun filtered through the large window, casting a warm glow on the wooden floors. Grandma Betty's house. My house. No more whining from my mother, no more crude remarks from Carl, no more unwelcome intrusions, just me and this peaceful silence. Not the lonely kind, but the kind that felt like freedom. I walked through the house, trailing my fingers along the wooden surfaces, past the familiar rocking chair where Grandma Betty used to sit. I could almost hear her voice in my mind. You're strong, Natalie. And one day, you'll stand on your own, without needing anyone else. She had been right. I had done it. I walked into the kitchen and reached for a bottle of red wine. Grandma Betty rarely drank, but she always kept a bottle for special occasions, and today felt like one. I poured a glass, then stepped onto the porch, gazing at the sky painted in hues of orange and pink. The evening breeze carried the scent of fresh grass and flowers from the garden she had once loved. Lifting my glass, I whispered to myself, "To you, Grandma, to me, to justice, to freedom." I took a sip, letting the dry, rich taste linger on my tongue. But inside, everything felt oddly sweet. This wasn't just any victory. This was my victory. The triumph of a girl who had once been discarded, trampled on, and forgotten. But in the end she stood tall, reclaimed what was hers, and proved she was never the worthless girl they thought she was. This house wasn't just a piece of property. It was where Grandma Betty's love still lived. It was where I had found myself again. I inhaled deeply, letting the fresh air fill my lungs. No fear. No doubts. No more ties to the past. Grandma Betty would be proud of me. And, more importantly, I was proud of myself. Natalie's story is not just a journey of overcoming betrayal and pain. It's a testament to the power of perseverance and self-worth. From a girl abandoned by her own family, she built her own life, reclaimed justice, and found true peace. This story reflects a harsh reality. Not everyone who brings us into this world truly loves us. But more importantly, it shows that we all have the right to define our own worth, seek happiness, and protect what is rightfully ours, no matter our past. What are your thoughts on Natalie's journey? Do you relate to her story? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more emotional and meaningful stories about family, life, and justice.